Archetypes and Shift of Consciousness. Our panelists, as you can see, we have here Sharon Mijares, we have Yumiko Otani, and of course we have Dr. Alia Rafa, and we are joined by Wale Ali and Riham Rifat, and we will have two short presentations from Sharon and from Yumiko. Sharon needs no introduction, we all know each other by now. She'll be talking about the importance of deep ancestral knowing and the collective unconscious shared by all humanity. And I invite her to come up to the podium now. Sharon.
Okay, this is something that I've been giving some thought to, and I think every person on the panel is going to touch this in some way. We're born, we come forth as a creative impulse. We all come from the same place, but creativity is inherent within each cell, each atom, each expression. On both the inner and the outer levels, there are many different manifestations, and the archetypal is very important. Dreams, myths, feelings and thoughts that tend to influence many of our decisions, our behaviors, and also our evolution. Now, there's a movement going on that is really interesting. I hadn't named it until about a little less than 2 years ago when I was here in Egypt and I was talking with Dr. Alia. And she was explaining to me about asawaso. Did I say that right? and the going to the tours and this very deep work of tuning into ancient archetypal energies, primal beginnings, a creative impulse is going to take its next level. At that point in time, it was like, oh, is that what I've been doing in Latin America? Because I've been going to ancient sites, and it had begun in many ways in 1981 when a friend invited me to go on a trip to Mexico City. Was a big part of that trip. And the first thing I said was, oh, I want to go to the volcanoes. At that time I didn't know how to say the names, but I had actually remembered this from grammar school. Even though I didn't remember math or anything else, I had remembered learning about these special volcanoes that represented the masculine and the feminine. You might say the genders longing for one another. Popocatépetl and Ixtaccíhuatl. And when I went there, I had a very spiritual experience. I was totally not expecting it, but I had a very profound spiritual experience. I won't go into detail to save time. But it basically affirmed a real unity with that land. And I think when we think of archetype and we think of these treasures like we have in Egypt and everything, these other places we're talking about, that we also have to consider land. The land itself that is part of that myth, part of that archetypal creativity streaming through. So then in Costa Rica, I learned from my friend Eleanor Dediger, a few of you know her, and Eleanor began to draw people together in Costa Rica, asking them, what drew you here? What is it in the land? What is it in the history? Also in working with Yumiko on her chapter from representing Japan and the work she was doing. There was also these elements in her chapter. In fact, I asked her to bring them forth, and she'll be talking about that more. So I began to realize that something was very significant is going on. In fact, even yesterday when talking with Dina Miriam about this, she mentioned that she's been recognizing this same influence in India and her attraction to this ancient energy. Now, at the same time that we have this sense of the past and the way it manifests as civilizations come together and they create basically archetypal structures and they're usually influenced somewhat by, to a great degree, to a great extent, by the land itself, that something is coming forth. At the same time, on an opposite level, whenever there are immense transformational energies, such as we have happening at this time on our planet, whenever there has been a major transformation in an era, the people of the present time have tended to try to destroy the past. People see this in, for instance, the Taliban destroying the Buddha statue, this great art history. We see it now with Daesh destroying the structures in Syria that have so much power within them. It's not new. You can go back to, you can look in the Old Testament, and you've got the prophet Moses destroying the golden calf, which was the symbol for the goddess before the Hebrew tradition came in. So there's something about, as a new impetus is beginning, there is this mistaken understanding that we have to destroy the past. Now, in order to keep this short, I'm going to summarize that I believe it is very important that we bring forth the past in order to create a healthier future. For instance, it has been known that many people join spiritual movements to try to avoid the history of their own childhood, to get away from the pain, go to some beautiful spiritual place and totally separate from one's past. It doesn't work because your past is with you. That's just an individual way of saying the same thing that I'm saying. You can't destroy the past that we come from as a humanity, as a civilization. There's great learning in this past. So we want to feel it. And that's the value of going and taking sacred tours to sacred sites, is because you're able to feel that. Just in the last week in my trip here, a 5-day cruise down to Aswan and up through Luxor, if I have a quiet time, I feel that something has changed me within, because I've tapped into very ancient Egyptian energies more than I ever had on previous trips. So, in order to move into a healthier future, one in which we have wholeness and we're grounded, because what we see coming is a lot of stretching out, you know, there's talk about landing on Mars and maybe a little community there. It's inevitable that we're going to stretch out into space, you know, if we don't destroy the planet, but I don't believe we're going to. We are going to make it through this, and our evolutionary spirit is a creative one. We will find a way to resolve our human problems and differences and move out into the future. The present requires both a future vision and a sense of this continuous creative movement, but it also requires a grounded connection to our most creative, archetypal, spiritual past. And that's what I want to point out in order to start this dialogue. Thank you.